Welcome to the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast. Join host Jimmy Young as he dives into the pulse of the cannabis industry, featuring weekly guests who break down big topics like standardization, evolving regulations, and exclusive member spotlights. Get informed, get inspired. And now, here's your host, Jimmy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast. I'm Jimmy Young, and we are supported and sponsored by Buds Group, a consulting group out of the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And they do more than just accounting, because they used to be Accounting Buds and now they're Buds Group. Check them out. And we also are supported and sponsored by Maverick PR out of Colorado. Joining us on this podcast is a member of the NCIA. His name is John Stanfill. He's from Maryland, and his company is Emerald Intel AI. Looking forward to talking with John. John, thank you so much for joining us here today. I know you're a busy guy. Tell us a little bit about emeraldintel.ai, and then I'll ask you a little bit more about AI.
Sure. Great. Well, thanks for having me. I'm psyched to be here. Very excited. And so Emerald Intel is a business intelligence tool servicing the cannabis and hemp vertical of, North America. So we are tracking all the cannabis and hemp licenses in the US and Canada. We also just recently announced, about 2 weeks ago, the addition of our brand data set, as well as the ancillary businesses that service the cannabis and hemp space. But long story short, our tool, Emerald Intel, was built to help our clients sell and market to their prospects more efficiently, make it easier for them to do their sales and marketing efforts.
There you go. And everybody needs a little more ease in this industry because it is such a challenge to be working in this cannabis space. Can you talk a little bit about how your data collection and your company differentiates itself from others in this space?
Sure. Yeah. I think one thing is that myself and my two co-founders were coming from the information service arena for the past 30 years. Mm-hmm. So we're, by most measures, fairly new to the cannabis space of the equation. But data collection, cannabis and hemp space, but data collection and data aggregation, we are, very well schooled in from 30 years of experience. And we've worked in commercial real estate information, sales and marketing information, any kind of major data set out there. And we got to the cannabis space through a friend of mine who has a fertilizer business, was trying to change up his strategy from B to C, selling quarts of his fertilizer to 50-gallon drums of his fertilizer. And he called me up and says, "Hey, you've been part of the information world. I know you know about this. I need to find some way to go I need to find the heads of cultivation at the big multi-state operators, or the guys that grow throughout the course of the year." We looked around and we couldn't find a suitable source for that. And so that's how we started the business, was through that. And so we basically brought our 30 years or 28 years, 26 years of data collection experience to the cannabis space and put that into practice. And so, what you realize is that like 60-70% of data aggregation, data collection is consistent, depending upon, how to do it and what's important. And then you have to adopt the nuance of the vertical. And so that's what we had to do with this space. But so I think the single biggest differentiator between us and anybody else is the experience that we were able to leverage to the vertical of cannabis and hemp. So software, user interface, functionality, data cycling, data aggregation, our ability to bring, upwards of 10 to 15 different data sources into our data lake, our cannabis data lake, marry that all together and synthesize it and have one complete output into the data set that is Emerald Intel. And so not only do you have to have a complete data set, you need to deliver it to your clients in a very usable format. You need to let your clients engage with that information in the way they'd want to, whether it's in their third-party CRMs or through a Chrome extension while they're on the internet, on a web page, or through an export routine. All those things are pieces of the puzzle that we had to bring to the table right from the get-go. And then probably most importantly of all, and we've seen, in my past worlds, a regular rule of thumb is about a 30% turnover in the human capital in a business over the course of a year. So, the old adage for information service world is, hey, about a 30-year database is going stale per year, right? What we're actually seeing in cannabis is we're seeing about a 10% per month. So, you're like, it's quadrupling the turnover in the industry as to a normal industry. And you see people moving jobs. You see, I don't know what the exact numbers are offhand, but when we started, Oklahoma maybe had 15,000 licenses. They're down to, I don't know what it is. I should know these things, but my research director does, 5 to 6. So you see these massive changes in data set. And so not only do you have to go collect good data, disseminate good data, but you also have to maintain and perpetually cycle this data to make it worthwhile to your clients. Because if you deliver it one and done, that does them no good. It's just going to get high bounce rates. It's going to be bad information. It's not going to make them do their job more efficiently than, any other way.
And the AI part of this is to make your jobs a little easier because you are relying on artificial intelligence learning by doing the work you're doing, which is analyzing data and collecting data.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I'll tell you like the story, so we are emeraldintel.ai, not emeraldintel.com.
Right.
Because when we started doing this about 4 years ago, the AI thing was not the AI thing that it is now. And the reality of why we're emeraldintel.ai is because that URL, I think, was $3.99 versus emeraldintel.com being $10,000 at the time. So we were like, let's go with the AI.
You don't need the A part, right? You figured that one right out. I think
yeah.
great.
So that was just kind of dumb luck, or I don't know. It's like it's kind of inconsequential. I mean, but the AI piece of this is definitely very important because you're aggregating tons and tons of data. You're aggregating tons of different brands, and your AI is being used in our code. Developing our software. We're being much more efficient using AI to build parts of our software. We use AI to go through these massive data sets of people and licenses and companies and brands and organize that and find consistencies or anomalies. Like all that is being used through AI. And then our salespeople are frankly using AI as we look at who's been, how do you aggregate who's opened your email the most or visited your website the most, et cetera. And I think, AI is obviously very, very in vogue, but AI is just kind of the new way of doing thing. I think, I think the conversation about is it AI or not is going to go away because it's, I mean, just go do any Google search right now is a simple example of it, right? So what's the best hotel in Los Angeles, right? It used to, like, I'd have paid advertising and, the whole thing about AEO versus SEO now, like, Four Seasons, Peninsula, whatever, Marriott. And now it's saying, like, if you're looking for a weekend away and you want to take your family to the hotel, well, this one's got the best swim. I mean, the whole thing is changing. That's AI. But very quickly, people are becoming normalized around what their expectation is to not be a series of links. It's now a paragraph to tell you advice. Right. And I think it's really rapidly infiltrating every component of your life.
Right. It's LLMs, large language models. That's what instead of SEO. And again, I'm learning this by doing and watching and listening to people like you who are much more intelligent about this than I am.
Yeah.
I have enough trouble with my own intelligence. I don't need artificial.
Yeah, right. I need some artificial intelligence to help me through, for sure. The other thing on the AI component of it is, as you go and you put AI to work on a very specific curated data set, i.e. Emerald Intel, like there's all sorts of metadata or little data tags that exist within our data set. As an example, I believe this is right. Some licenses in California, some cultivation licenses in California allow you to transport the product, others don't. But that's not really a surfaceable piece of data through a click and check kind of traditional way to search. But we're going to be able to start to let people go into the product and say, a simple question: who's the CEO of TrueLeaf? Like you could go say TrueLeaf, check that box and go look for and put a title in and go find that list. You could do it that way, but it might just be easier to say like a Google question, or show me all the cultivation companies in California that have that license type that doesn't allow them to transport their product. So therefore, if I'm a transport company, I know I can call the guy that's not allowed per the license, but is. And that's just in the data set, in the metadata of the licenses itself. And that's the kind of stuff that Emerald is doing, is we're not just collecting, California Control Board or Cannabis Control Board from California, license number 123 equals company XYZ. We're actually going through that and understanding what the licenses are doing and what they allow for, and then giving it to the client. Or say, show me all the companies that have, a distribution license or a manufacturer license in conjunction with a cultivation license. So like a bunch of different things.
Absolutely, and obviously the giant or the giant in the room that we haven't chatted about, of course, is the potential to reschedule this product from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, which would still make it a controlled substance, still illegal federally, but it would soften up a lot of the financial constraints that the industry has been suffering from, certainly over the last half dozen years or so. What impact will that have not only in your business, but I would guess that your data size is going to explode?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. I don't know if I really know. I mean, I could try and make some, I don't know if I know the answer to that, because I mean, if you get more free cash flow as a business because you can like have business expenses that are deductible, does that
Right.
mean you invest more with your, for the licensees I'm talking about?
Yep.
Do they get more free cash flow, which allows them to invest more in their infrastructure and their display cases and their software that they use in house, their learning management tools they give for their employees, the pay to their employees? I mean, all these different things. Assuming that would be the case, then perhaps they'd be buying more product from who are really the people we sell to. For the most part, we sell to people that sell to the licensees at this point. I think that'll change as we progress more with this brand data set, and you can start to see where products are and what shelves they're on and that kind of stuff. But so I think, I think free cash flow is good. I think it allows people to get paid more. I think it allows people to get more money they can invest. I mean, it's your guess is as good as mine as to when does it go Schedule 1 or Schedule 3, or go from Schedule 1 to 3. I mean, there's, President Trump said something about,
Few
I
weeks.
think medical.
He
Yeah,
said,
like a couple.
and then he sent out that video. Have you seen the video?
I haven't seen the video, but I've heard it, right?
Okay.
Or
Well,
heard of it.
it is by far the closest thing to a public service announcement that has been produced professionally and distributed in this country. And it's something obviously I'm very privy to. And I will send you a link to
Yeah, please.
my introduction of that video and my spin on it, both intro and outro. I think you'll enjoy it. And I think you'll enjoy what I had to say. I may be wrong, but I don't get into
Yeah.
politics as much as I get into the wow, this is a huge thing because there's legitimacy, and he's recognizing the fact that this Schedule 1 plant medicine has medicinal qualities. Whoa,
Right.
it took how many years, decades, to get us to this point? But it was, to me, from the industry and looking at it from an observer, it was a big first step. It really
Yeah.
was. And I've been trying to reach the doctor who was behind this, but that's another story. I want to ask you this question that's on our list, and I'm interested to get your spin on it. What's the biggest mistake that most early stage companies make in the cannabis space? And we both know that it's such a challenge to work in this space. There's no industry that's as regulated as this one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm going 0 for 2 on my ability to answer these. I don't know if it's in the cannabis space or just in general. I
Okay.
think you have to, in my mind, our biggest goal is to build a really good product, take really good care of our customers, build a great product that makes it our customers able to use it, rely on it, and benefit from it. Take really good care of them, be always available at all costs to our customers, and then get those customers to renew. I always just say that I don't really have a customer. I mean, our contract prices are not that expensive. So our we don't like anybody could take our we sell our product on an annual contract. Anybody could go and buy our product for 1 year and give it a test drive. I don't really think I have a client till they renew my product at day 366 is what I always say. And so I kind of think that not, and then I want to build a good product, have high client retention, and get to profitability and not spend a lot of money. Because if I can become profitable, then a whole bunch of stuff is great for me. And I don't know if people are necessarily always focused on building a good, solid business that can survive upticks and downturns in the market. And so our goal was to, and also be sensitive of how many of these types of products are there? Like how many different, like what's my competitive, like the scarcity of your offering, I think creates a direct correlation to the value. If you're one of three or one of five or one of two, great. If you're one of 20, like what's, if you're one of 20, you got X% likelihood of success. If you're one of two, you got a 50-50 shot. So just like basic stuff like that. So I think it's a matter of how do you go build a good business that's needed and unique and then differentiatable. And if you do those things well and take care of your clients, if you make a mistake, we make mistakes. If I make a mistake, shame on me. If I fix that mistake quickly, good for me. If I make a mistake and I don't fix it, bad on me. And so like, I just think you have to think about how to be a good corporate citizen, how to build good products, and how to build something sustainable and deliverable to, and that people need it. That's another thing is I think, software in my world, there's like software developers always like, back to the AI, let's go build this really cool AI thing. And you ask them, what would the client use it for? Well, I don't know, but it's pretty cool. And it's like, no, if we don't know why the client wants it, we're not building it. Like, let's build, and it might be really boring stuff, but that's the reality is my goal is to build something that works really well,
Hey, what would you like to see the NCIA offer its members? How would you like to see improvements or something you'd like to see it develop?
Yeah, I think NCIA is great. I got to do the lobby days. I think that's the last time we saw it in person.
Yep.
That was like a really interesting, like just a very fascinating engagement, not because it was NCIA, but going down to Capitol Hill and walking into various states' offices and meeting with their representatives. It was fascinating. It was very cool. Speaking more about my ignorance, that that every American has that ability to go do what we did. Like it's a very remarkable thing to go do that. I think more and more of that is good. I think I don't know enough about lobbying and how do you actually make change happen? We can do the lobby days, things like that, but I think NCIA should. I think they do a good job, and they're engaging with more and more of their client base and seeking out more clients. And then I think the more people that we get involved with NCIA, the stronger that organization becomes. Right. And the stronger that organization becomes, the more of a movement it could be to continue this path forward with the cannabis reform.
And we have come a long way. I think you have to look back and, don't worry so much. Well, worry by all means, but, make these changes as quickly as you can. But you use the word fascinating, and I use that word all the time when I talk about this industry because there's so many elements to it between the economics and supply and demand, data analytics and right. And then your botany and your science and your chemistry. And then you go in the trenches like we both did at lobby days and you learn why nothing gets done very quickly at the government. I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, there's a lot of meetings going on, a lot of people talking, but nobody's making a decision. And they don't make decisions anymore until they are forced to pass a bill like, I don't know, keep the government open, and it's just amazing to me how leverage plays a huge role in all negotiations across all industries. And And how do we do that in this one? I'm not quite sure we know yet. I know there's a lot of trying going on. One last question about the stigma. Do you still deal with the stigma when you're out there? And of course, you're dealing with the industry directly. I'm going to
Yeah.
guess that a lot of people still have to deal with this almost on a daily basis.
Well, I think that so I always make the analogy that our industry is going from green collar to white collar. I mean, it's becoming more and more acceptable.
Mhm.
The stigma is, like I said, I'm not coming from the cannabis space. I'm coming from the information world.
Right.
And I talk to my information world peers about, I'm now in the cannabis space, and no one's even batting an eye. They're like, I can't believe there's not a service like yours already. It's like, and it's like, how could this be? And whatever. But it's my point there is that people are just, I think the cannabis, I think it's out of sight, out of mind. It's just, okay, it's hatched, it's here. And that's, I think, why if you get more and more NCIA membership, there's more and more people that are willing to influence it and, drive the whole thing forward. And so I feel like the stigma is going away. I think, my father's wife will never see this, not because she's not a huge fan, but like when I go to their house and I see them and she's going to bed and hands me a jar of CBD gummies, with THC, like, oh, do you need this to sleep? Like, so here's this 85-year-old woman who is just, it's,
But that's the video. When you see the video, his case is basically this CBD can help the healthcare industry and older senior Americans. And
yeah,
honest to God, I'm still in shock that came out of this particular video. And there's the president, signing his farm bill and
yeah,
basically accepting responsibility for basically legalizing the cannabis sativa plant and then creating a federal definition that has been completely debunked, completely abused, because humans always find ways to get around regulations if they have
yeah,
to, right? I
yeah.
mean, I'll use a
What
baseball
you see with
analogy.
hemp, right?
I'll
Yeah,
use a baseball analogy. I think you'll understand this. The testers were always ahead of the cheaters, right? I mean,
yeah,
what we said, right? So
yeah, right.
that's human behavior, isn't it?
Yeah, and my ultimate point there is that if it's like medically becoming accepted, socially becoming accepted, and it's being accepted at the younger level, the different age groups all the way up to their 80s, it's everywhere. It's happening. The toothpaste is not going back in the tube,
No.
and it's just like, how do we continue to evolve on the progression of acceptance, continue to evolve on the progression of research so you can maximize the opportunities in front of you.
Right.
And it's just, and I think that happens through brute force, through, tax dollars that are generated by it, by the states. There's, and to your point about the varying degrees of interesting elements of this industry is, like, when you start to understand that cannabis is generating more tax dollars than alcohol is in Massachusetts, you're like, and
It
like,
it it
it's
it moves
fascinating to me.
it moves the political needle too when money gets
For sure,
involved
it
in that,
does.
doesn't it? Right? And but I will say this in defense of the industry, what's happening in a lot of states right now, John, is with state shortfalls of budgets, they're increasing taxes on
Which
top
is
of the
problematic,
already
right?
existing taxes in cannabis. It's happening in Michigan right now, and not touching alcohol. Okay.
Right.
And I'm sorry, no disrespect to our friends in the alcohol industry.
Yeah,
In
right.
fact, I'd like to actually get them more involved in the regulation, to be honest. That being said, uh, I just don't like the unjust and unfair policies, and they
I agree with that.
always use the cannabis escape or let's tax the cannabis industry more. The industry is not going to survive if they keep doing that, and everybody's going to
Yes.
go back to the legacy market again, which, if I remember correctly, was the whole point of this in the first place. Let's regulate it, test it, control it, so the people know it's safe to use medicinally, because it's always been medicinal, usually
Yeah.
first before we go to the adult use side of things. And I don't like
Yeah.
using that word recreational, because I just
Yeah.
don't think you want to use medicine recreationally. I mean,
No.
Robitussin gets you high. Okay, I just
Yeah.
had a bronchitis problem, right? And I mean, I didn't touch cannabis, but I was plenty high because I was using dextromethorphan. And by the way, I still had to show my ID to prove that I was over 21 to take
Yeah.
the product out of the drugstore. So
Uh,
we've come a long way, but we still have
yeah.
a long way to go.
Oh, for sure. There's a long ways to go, but that's the opportunity. Like that's the opportunity.
That's right.
It makes the whole vertical very opportunistic in that respect, I believe.
And it's fascinating, right, John?
It's very fast. I mean, every day you learn something new, and we talk to such a cross section of people that are trying to build products for this vertical. And there are so many different types of businesses out there pursuing really, really interesting solutions with the plant, with the product for the benefit. And it's you have these conversations, and you're fascinated by them.
There you go. I wish I had a nickel every time I use that word fascinating or
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
John Stanfill from emeraldintel.ai. Thank you so much for joining us here
Thank you for having me.
on the
Very much enjoyed the
NCIA
time.
Voice of Cannabis podcast. And of course, I appreciate your work, and be nice to your neighbors. Will you please? I mean, come on.
Always am. Always
All right.
am.
I know you are. Thank you,
Yeah.
John. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for another edition of the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast, supported by and sponsored by the Buds Group consulting group out of the tri-state area of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and of course the Maverick PR Group out of Colorado. So for John Stanfill from emeraldintel.ai, I'm Jimmy Young. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And again, remember to like, share, and subscribe.